Hi, this is Chris from Orange Coast College's Art Department, looking at how to set up your layers in Photoshop for painting an object. For instance, this tiki mug at the center of this painting. So let's zoom in a little bit and see what we're looking at. So this is a good example of an object that's got a single finish, but it's got a lot of surface articulation to accept multiple light sources. So what I think I want to do is take a look at how this was set up and then paint it one more time in a way that we can really show a conventional layer stack for painting most anything. So first, let's take a look at the line work. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and the individual painted part here. And just take a look at, here's our line work for the whole image. And often I'll draw this in black, but depending on the value of my objects, I may reverse it. And this is a really dark painting, nighttime scene, so I inverted the line so that it's white line instead of black line. So this is the beginning, doing a line drawing. And then sort of piece by piece, I would go around in this painting and paint things in. So here's an example of a folder group with a few different layers. And this kind of has these oversized glasses that are on the display part of the building. So if we kind of turn off our line work, this is just the layers in that folder group. And these have probably been collapsed. You can paint this all in one layer if you want, but I like a certain way of stacking my layers so that they're easily editable, and it gives me an opportunity to change my mind without doing too much backtracking if I want. So what I've done is I've taken just the line out of here and I've copied it into a new file, and then I've added some line work where the other cups were obscuring the complete thing. So what I want to do here is paint just the tiki mug, but under a similar lighting scenario as that overall painting there. So one of the first things I want to do and really recommend everybody do every single time is figure out your lighting. And that's just kind of making a commitment. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up a new layer called lighting. And I like to get maybe roughly the lighting color I might be working with. And first I want to do from the front, big lights coming in from the bottom. So if we look here, there's hidden lights in this fake boat below the three cups. And these are like big floodlights. And if we zoom out a little bit, I've got a bit of color from the sky, not too much, but there's a little pink from 2 o'clock on the dial, and then there's a good amount of purple. So let's throw in a little bit of that light pink from here, and maybe some blue violet coming here. This is kind of just fill light. And then there's actually there's cups on either side, and I don't think we'll see the effect of the blue light from the blue glass on the right, but I've got a little bit of this red-orange from the top of the Mai Tai glass banking in to the left side. So let me get a little bit of that red-orange here. And it's just kind of coming up from there. So that's kind of my lighting situation. Most of the light is from the bottom and from the front, and then you can see some accent light and then a little bit of fill light. And this is super important to commit to early on so that you don't lose track of your light sources. And in the end, we can just turn that layer off. But I like to leave it at the top of a layer stack so that I'm always reminded of what's going on. All right, so let's start to look at the mug itself. The first thing I would do is paint a silhouette. And I'm going to lower the opacity on my line layer a bit so I can see the paint that I'm doing. And I've got sort of two things going on. I've got the mug itself, and then I've got the bits and pieces above. And I might think about separating those two into two different parts. So more and more these days, I'm doing my silhouettes with a hard round brush, and I'm doing them in an obnoxious color. And what this obnoxious color gives me is I can tell where I've been, like it's not going to blend into anything else. And so, my goodness, So I'm going to title this layer Mug, and then paint in the silhouette in this obnoxious pink color. And what that pink color gives me is it tells me where I've painted already. Oops, sorry, got in on my lines. So I can still see my line overhead, but I know if I miss a gap, like right there, I can see this gap easily. So let's do a little time lapse and fill this mug in. All right, so next I'm going to turn off my lines and just see how my silhouette is. It looks okay. I just want to maybe round this guy out and come in and get a nice smooth arc here. And for the most part, that looks good. But if I have any holidays in here, they're going to be super apparent because of this obnoxious color. So let's turn the lines back on. Looks pretty good. Maybe I'll paint in a little bit there. And I think we're pretty set to go. So next up, I'm going to add a new layer here, and I'll call it local color. And I'm going to check this box to use the previous layer to create a clipping mask. And what I can do here is just instantly fill, whether at a brush or using keyboard command, my local color. And I think I had kind of a, well, let's see. Yeah, I think the local color is fairly blue-green and not super saturated. And I think because it's ceramic, it's really going to change a bit with the color of the light. So I'll probably have blue-green over here. And the nice part about this, because I have a clipping mask on it, I can paint freely, super easy. So maybe I do a little bit of a hue shift. Over here, and maybe it's a little lighter over here. And I can put the color from the light in layer. What I'm going to go after right now is sort of getting our overall form shading and then do occlusion shadowing. So maybe a little bit, I'm just to exaggerate the form shading here. putting that core shadow a little bit more obvious on it. All right, so let's add a little bit darker just on the edge here. So this just gives me a little bit overall form lighting. And then I can come in and start shadowing in all the grooves. If we take a look at here, it's got tons of in and out. Most of the in and out is about the same depth, but deep crevices and then bulges from the surface. So to do that, I'm just going to come in and paint on this form the shadows first, and then I'm going to come back for the highlights. And this is all occlusion shadowing. This doesn't take into account my actual light sources, just takes into account the form of the object and how occlusion shadows would work. So I'm going to need to turn down my lines to where I can barely see them. Sample my local color, make it a good degree darker. And let's just start right in here. With my eyes. And that looks about right. So let's time lapse this and come on back once we go through all our shadows. All right, so here is my mug with basic occlusion shadowing going on. I could probably detail it a little bit more, but I think you get the basic idea. So what I want to do next is I want to apply some lighting, but I want to do it in a new layer. So I'm going to come up here, do a new layer, hold down Option to group it with the previous one. And I should call it lighting. And what I want to do is start to show the effect of these specific lights. So let's start with our main lighting. And I'm just going to take a brush and I'm going to sample my color right here. And I want to find the areas where we're going to get sort of broad light that's hitting it. And I want to be able to show that I see not quite highlights, but sort of center light, and I can come back in another layer and kind of do the highlights. So I just want to get in here. And what I think I'm going to do, sometimes we can make it work great just like in normal, but often I like to check out overlay and soft light. And the reason is the color interaction. So I'm going to try We do check out overlight versus normal. Overlight, normal. So let's go ahead with the overlay. And that'll also let me be a little firmer with it. So I'm just kind of working my way up, knowing that we're going to kind of hit the bottom parts of these folds. And just to give myself an opportunity for the other lights to come in, I'm not going to go all the way to the top. All right, and now coming across the top section, I'm going to just sample some of this color, maybe lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to do a little bit of that pink from the sky. Give this an opportunity to change my lighting color a little bit. And let's snag a little bit of this purple, lighten it up. And then lastly, get a little bit of the orange. This is banking off of the sort of unseen Mai Tai glass next door that has sort of a red-orange quality to it. So even though I'm not painting it in this instance, I want to get a little bit of that going on. All right, so I think we're looking pretty good here. The next thing really is just specific highlights. And so I'm going to do another layer here and call it highlights. And I just want to get kind of hot spots now. So I'm going to be a little bit more pure with the brush. I'm going to try to estimate where I'll see actual reflections of my lights. And I'm not really going to catch highlights from those dim lights. I'm looking more for the lights down at the bottom. And then lastly, I'm going to go with a little bit more darks to really pop my darks out. So on top of my local color, I can do this on a new layer, or I can just go into the local color and do it. But I'll do it in a new layer because I like to often have a shading layer on multiply. Just want to get into those crevices and somewhere that where the light really can't get in. And to emphasize them a little bit. And the reason I will often do this on own layer is I can now vary the opacity of it. So if I think, oh, that's too much, I can just drag my opacity down and I can go back and forth, making it as dark or as light as I want to. All right, so here we go. Here's our object. Could be anything. In this case, it's a tiki mug. And what I'm trying to do is first I decide what my lighting is, and I put my lines in. Here are my lines at full opacity. Then I block in my silhouette of my object, and then use that as a clipping group to apply local color. And I turn off the lines and I paint in occlusion shadowing. And so this is just shadowing crevices where light has a harder time finding its way. And then I take my lighting into account, and I give my colored lighting from my various light source. I add some highlights, and then I add some shadows to just darken some things up. There you have it. Now it's your turn. You can use this stack of layers over and over and over again. So for instance, if I'm going to put in those garnishes on the top of the tiki mug, I would just do that in a layer set laid out just like this on the stack right below. So now it's your turn. Go for it. Have fun.